Welcome into episode 584 of the Skate Podcast. I am Brian DeFelice, joined by Bridget Prue and Scott McLaughlin. Bridget and Scott, the NHL draft is a little bit over 24 hours away. At the time you're listening to this, maybe it's exactly 24 hours away or sooner. And of course, that extends to Saturday. The NHL has been bonkers this week. We talked earlier in the week about Brady Tkachuk being traded to the Florida Panthers. We still know that Dylan Larkin has a trade request out there. We speculate that maybe Connor Hellebuyck does. There's been talks surrounding Zach Werenski's future in Columbus. There are some others, but I'll get to my opening shift first and foremost, how it could pertain to the Bruins, because Don Sweeney on Wednesday met with the media in a pre-draft availability, and I know you guys will touch on that in detail in a second. But before we get to that, there has been some movement around the NHL in a big way, and it's been a crazy draft week. So as I mentioned, you had Brady Tkachuk going to Florida, Darren Radish with a sign and trade to Toronto, Simon Nemec, who was a right shot option that potentially we thought could have been a fit for the Bruins depending on the price. He has been sent to Calgary. Eklund, is it William Eklund?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to confuse it with the draft pick from last year. He was sent to Ottawa for the 9th overall pick, which they got in the Brady Tkachuk trade. Jordan Kyrou goes to Washington. Bowen Byram goes to Chicago for the 4th overall pick to the Sabres. Holy cow. Alex.
Insane deal. Just legitimately one of the most stunning trades I can remember in recent memory.
Alex.
Cannot believe that Bo Byram got the 4th overall pick plus a second rounder. He's a second pairing defenseman. Like he's good. I like Bo Byram, but holy moly.
Yeah.
4th overall is you normally don't see top 5 picks move because it takes so much to get, there's going to be so much coming back.
It was the first time since the 04-05 lockout that a top 5 pick has been traded post lottery. So with the draft order already set.
Right.
Yeah. And Buffalo also, they got something for Alex Tuch, right? Because he had a sign and trade as well. So
yeah, that was the last one I was going to touch on. Alex Tuch goes to Washington. So now Washington has Jordan Kyrou, Alex Tuch. You wonder what that means for Alex Ovechkin's future. Maybe they're loading up. Maybe it's partly to replace him. And if I missed any other major transactions, let me know. Obviously, there are other pieces involved in those trades I just mentioned and whatnot, but I was just highlighting the main part of each trade. So very active week. Not included in that list was anything to do with the Boston Bruins, and we'll talk throughout this episode.
Wait a minute. No, wait. They traded Andre Gasso.
Well, they did. They did, yeah. We did touch on that briefly the other week, but yeah. So I'll throw it over to you guys. Don Sweeney had his press conference. Pretty much, I want to say at the time of his press conference, all of these moves had happened, maybe with the exception of Alex Tuch, which may have been right afterwards. But in any event, you guys can take it over here.
Yeah, Brian, I think you're right about the timing of it, because I think a majority of that stuff had happened pre us talking to him, and it obviously there's a big subject. It was much less about the draft as it's the pre-draft, press conference, but I think most people weren't as apt to ask about the actual draft itself, with them not picking as high as they did last year. So a lot of it was about free agency. And those other moves that you're talking about around the league, and how, he started out by saying, there's been a lot of chatter that, he's been involved in, but that they kind of still on the sidelines. And I think what was the exact quote? He said,
eager to participate.
Yeah. And somebody put up the meme of Michael Scott's inside jokes. I'd like to be a part of them one day. but yeah, so that was how it started off. But we're going to get to all of that. My opening shift has to do with their free agents. The Bruins' current UFAs. So that's what I wanted to know most about. That's what I asked Sweeney about, was Arvidsson and Peeke, and his response to how close they were or whatever, was in a perfect world, those deals would be already done because we have expressed interest in both. There's interest from both sides, just haven't found an agreeable term or AAV. And he also said that if they can't get to those terms, they'll have to find a trade to bring back somebody to fill in those roles because those were both important players for us. So he originally, like, the first comment was like, I don't want to share anything, but I do think there was something in that answer, that obviously they're not there yet. And I think there's disappointment there, that there's a hope to bring both of those guys back. Especially, I think Arvidsson is somebody that they really do want to be part of the picture next year, maybe a few years, and Andrew Peeke, we talked about it a little bit last episode. They want Andrew Peeke back, it seems. So those two guys haven't gotten an extension done yet. We'll see how far apart they are from each other in terms of term and money. So we don't know that part. Obviously, he's not going to share that part with us. So he's going to be like, oh yeah, we're $2 million off or something. But the other interesting one is that he said that Zacha, he is in their long-term plans and that he would like to get an extension done with Zacha before that vulnerable season that, where they're in the last year of his deal next year. Right. So, interesting. I wonder if we get an extension for Zacha this offseason. The fact that he straight up came out and said, that's what we want. We want him here, pretty definitively. I was a little bit surprised because we kind of talked about how he could be a valuable piece to send elsewhere, and probably would get you a first-round pick. So I think maybe that conversation comes off the table with.
I think that and Bridget, like I hear what you're saying because I think that's the knee-jerk reaction that I think I had too. But I'll just say this: if he had plans to trade him, he wouldn't be saying it in the media. He would be building him up.
But he, I don't know. I guess you have to take him at his word or not. For like, if you're going just based on his word.
I would say always take everyone with a heaping dose of salt around this time of year. My advice on that. So because listen, if he's exploring the possibility of trading Zacha, what are you going to say in the media? You're going to pump him up and talk about how great he is and how valuable of a player he is. And we want him here. So that sends a message to other teams of like, listen, if you want to trade for him, like, you got to blow us away. This is a guy I want to keep around. This is a guy we really value. So I think he'd be saying pretty much the same thing, whether he truly means it and really does want to extend him, July 1 or soon after, or if he is considering trading him. I think either way, what he was going to say yesterday when asked about Zacha was probably going to be the same.
Which does not discount what your takeaway is, Bridget. Like, because what you said is it could be true. I think what we're just saying is it also is true that he wouldn't say anything other than that. So it's all just worth noting.
Yeah, well, he could, but he could have said, like something more generic, not like, oh yeah, we want to get this done. Like we've identified him as as part of our long-term future. I think it's really hard to go from saying that to trading him this week. Like I think it'd be a hard turn. Like, well, where did that go? That was a few days ago.
That's the business. I just think that if he did say something more generic, you're right, he could have. Then he wouldn't be. And then salesman.
Yeah, that would have left the door open for everyone to be like, ooh, that was kind of non-committal. I bet there's something going on there. Like, I mean, listen, it's the game we all play, right? Like, we're gonna read into everything he does and doesn't say. It's just the I guess the nature of a GM talking, 2 days before the draft and 6 days before free agency or whatever it is. I'm
choosing to believe it. I'm choosing to believe it. You guys don't have to.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we'll see. I will say, I do think, like, right? Like, if you ask me what's more likely right now, I would say they probably extend Zacha.
Oh, is that on Scott's end? Scott, you want to repeat yourself? You kind of broke out there for a second.
Oh, well, I don't know where I cut out, but I think what Bridget's saying is, if you ask me what's more likely, it's that they extend Zacha. But I just don't think him saying they want to do that takes the trade off the table.
That's why I feel too. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. My opening shift, assuming my internet doesn't cut out again, is kind of tied to this because because Sweeney made it clear early on. He said, we want to add, we want to improve, we want to continue to take steps forward. That's the same thing Charlie Jacobs and Cam Neely said on breakup day. But I did want to ask Sweeney, so I did, like, given the high prices that are happening in the trade market right now, would you at least consider trading off the active roster if the right offer is there? And he said, yes. He said everything has to be on the table this time of year. Ultimately, our goal is to improve now and moving forward. Talks about depth, talks about identifying some young guys who could take steps, but finishes with, we'll be open-minded about that. We have to live in all those spaces. We just do. I'm not promising, but I do believe we're trying to do a little bit of both, meaning buying and selling. So, I think like some people might hear that and their mind immediately goes to like Pavel Zacha because his name's the one popping up in the most rumors right now. And maybe it does go that high, but there's kind of an easy out here for Sweeney because there's also the lesser names that we've all talked about where it's like, well, technically trading Jonas Korpisalo or Henry Jokiharju or Mikey Eyssimont, like those are all trading off the active roster too, right? And those are not. So maybe like that's not what people might be thinking when they hear that. I think your mind naturally goes to bigger names. But, there's those guys. But I do think, and like this comes back to the Zacha conversation, like I do think Sweeney's going to listen on other guys. Zacha, Casey Middlestat, I think for sure is someone he'll listen on. But, whether something gets done there, like it depends. He can set a high bar and see if someone clears it. Certainly, as we've seen, some GMs are like, I gotta imagine the Sabres did not expect that they could get what they got for Bowen Byram. But all it takes is one GM who just says like, yeah, this is the guy I need to have, and they go above and beyond and blow you away, and you'd be crazy not to accept. Like that could happen with Zacha or anyone else. So I am curious to see like how. Because I do think I don't think he's lying. Like I think there is going to be some of both. I think they're going to make moves to add from the outside, and I do think you're going to see guys on this roster under contract now get traded away over this next week plus.
So I just saw this tweet from about an hour, not even an hour ago, from Greg Wyshynski. Is he with ESPN?
Mm-hmm.
So he said regarding Jason Robertson, and this is not exactly a hard pivot because I'm going to combine these things here. One NHL executive that inquired about him said the Dallas Stars were seeking a quote unquote Rantanen package back for the RFA winger. Please recall they sent 2 protected first rounders. The Bruins could do that. 2 thirds and second-year center Logan Stankoven to Carolina. He said, "We shall see." ... Now, for a roster play comparison, I think Fraser Minton might be like the better comparable to a Logan Stankoven. But what if it wasn't him? What if it was 2 protected first, 2 thirds, and the final year of a very affordable Pavel Zacha contract, who's kind of still in that window of like Dallas's win now age range and could be extended. Like I don't know. I just think that there could be ways to bring in a high impact player like that without giving up your Hagans, your Mintons, your Laternos. And I think if you were to do that situation, that could be one of the rare situations where you do give up Zacha and aren't immediately worse because Jason Robertson is gonna score at least 25 plus more points than Zacha, different position. But theoretically, you shouldn't be relying on Pavel Zacha long term at the center ice position, because part of the conversation yesterday was, we're center by committee. And well, you have Fraser Minton, you have James Higgins, you still have Elias Lindholm for better or worse. You have Matt Poitras who could play center. You have other guys who could play center. So the one thing that the Boston Bruins can never say this offseason is that they lack opportunity to do something. I think the Bruins do have, and I know there are some Bruins fans out there who disagree, and I think that those are the same Bruins fans that if the Bruins won a cup, they would probably say the other team lost the cup. So with that in mind, I do think that the Bruins have some real assets if they chose to do something high impact. The thing is, other teams have those same equal to or better assets as well. Some teams don't have as many good assets, but I just feel like the Bruins, and I've said this before, they need to either make a big splash, right? Or they need to, just kind of go be more patient and have an offseason that's not very sexy. What I don't want them to do is like the in between of like, well, let's bring in Trocheck and let's bring in, Trouba or Anderson, like we've talked about. So just a thought based off of Greg's tweet there.
Yeah, I think the reality of like giving those two first, the 2/3 and a Zacha, it would become a lot easier for the Bruins if Elias Lindholm was the player they thought they were getting when they signed him and wasn't dealing with the injuries and didn't have the drop off that he did, because then you can move Zacha and feel comfortable like, oh, well, we still have our number one center, right? Like our best guy's still here. This makes our wing stronger. This probably gives us more points. Like it would be so much easier to do in that situation. But that's not the situation that they're in. So, but yeah, like the fact that there's a report that they're taking offers, that's for our conversation that we've been having about him, mostly on the offer sheet side of things, but also we mentioned you could trade and make sure that you're the team that gets him. I mean, it's good news if that's who you really wanted, if that's who Sweeney is interested in, there's a possibility that you can get him there. I do kind of feel like they'd probably be asking for a younger center. So maybe their asking price is Minton and maybe you're not willing to give that up. Or maybe their asking price is Dean Letourneau and you're willing to give that up. Right. Like, but that I guess wouldn't really help a win now situation, which Dallas is in. Though it is he will be in here in the near future. So yeah, there's so much out there also that we didn't know was out there, or that like there was like a tiny bit of smoke, but not a lot. So I feel like there's probably still some stuff that barely talked about that maybe does end up happening. So I also was wondering, and I know Scott, you're probably going to want to give your opinion on the Jason Robertson thing too, but just throw this out there before you go. Were there any guys that signed or got moved that you think the Bruins should have been in on and should have been willing to maybe do something similar with in terms of what they're willing to give up to get those guys?
I don't know that there's a trade I've seen yet that I'm like, oh, the Bruins should have done that. Because I think everyone, I mean, the bigger deals cost a lot and cost more valuable draft picks than the Bruins could offer. Like you've seen top 10 picks on the move. In the case of like William Eklund goes for 9 overall. Bowen, like again, no one's like, I like Bowen Byram. There's just no way you're coming anywhere close to matching that. I didn't expect William Eklund to get traded. That's a player I would have loved to have targeted, but they got a top 10 pick. Like you don't have a top 10 pick right now. So I don't think you were beating that unless you're giving up James Higgins, which I wouldn't do. So, no, I don't know that there's one out there so far that I'm like, man, the Bruins got caught snoozing. Like Jordan Kyrou is a player I liked, but Washington gave up a lot. Like I think I'm okay not doing that right now. He's a winger. If that's a center, if that's Robert Thomas, I'm much more into it. So no, it is funny seeing like fans' reactions too of like, like Don Sweeney is just like sleeping through this and everyone else is making moves. But Bridget, like you're asking the right question. It's like, okay, which one of these should he have made? Right? Like if you're gonna lament him sitting on the sidelines so far. By the way, offseason, last I checked, not over on June 25th. In fact, like literally just started 4 days ago. Like, if you're gonna be mad that he hasn't done anything big yet, like you do have to pick which one of these trades he should have made. And that's where I come down and say, I'm okay not doing any of these yet, given what it would have cost, what assets you have compared to other teams. Now, if we're talking here on July 10th and the Bruins have done nothing of note, like, okay, then we can have the conversation of like, what were they doing? But like, we're not there yet. The offseason literally just started. It's very much not over. So I don't think we can judge like, oh, Don Sweeney did nothing when the majority of movement is still to come. So I'm okay, being patient so far, but let's see where it goes. And as for Robertson, yeah, like that's all those possibilities you mentioned are prices I'm willing to pay. Like, would I rather trade Zacha than Minton or Letourneau? Probably, because he doesn't fit as obviously into your long-term future. But if it took Minton or Letourneau, like, again, depending on how much else is going back, like those guys to me don't project to ever be anything close to Jason Robertson. So I'll suck it up and do that if that's what it takes. But yeah, like, absolutely worth exploring. And I know Dallas is still, like, the reporting has been Dallas is doing both. They're kind of operating on two tracks right now where they want to re-sign him. They're still negotiating, but at the same time, they are entertaining trades and taking offers, because eventually, if they don't get an extension done, eventually you reach a point where they have to trade him, right? Like, they can't, unless they do expose themselves to offer sheets. So
which would surprise all of us, I think.
Yeah. So they are very much kind of playing both sides of the fence right now, and could take this all the way up to July 1st unless someone blows them away.
Yeah, I just think it comes down to, for me, like, I do think that there are moves that are out there that the Bruins could do that aren't as sexy or aren't as headliney, but would still be a net positive move because you would be bringing in some youth and upside. I think of like a Kent Johnson. I think of a Mason McTavish, right? Like, those types of moves, I would come on this show and I would say, again, depending on what you give up, but I would say, yeah, that's like good move, like good move to keep building, this roster and whatnot, and keep betting on youth. But you're not going to appease your top players. And Kirill Marchenko is another name. Like, Columbus confuses me because they just went out and re-signed Charlie Coyle to like a 6-year deal, whatever it was, 7-year deal, whatever it was, maybe more. And so, but now they're having conversations with Zach Werenski about his future, and Kirill Marchenko's name's out there, and Kent Johnson's name's out there. So to me, I don't know what the hell Columbus was doing signing Coyle if they had any idea that this was the direction that they could be going in. But anyway, I digress. I think there are good moves that the Bruins could do out there. But if they're trying to make a big impact move, like bring in a true impact elite type of producer, we've talked about the center. There aren't any true 1Cs that we think are really out there. Again, we talked about it. Unless you're trying to overpay for Dylan Larkin, who is not an elite producer, he's a good number one center, or take a gamble on Elias Pettersson, which I don't think any of us think is even going to happen necessarily. You have to look at the wing, Jason Robertson. The reason we bring up this conversation is because you have to try to take advantage when you can of an elite player in a situation that his team is kind of hamstrung. The cap is going up and will continue to do so. Dallas can afford him long term, but they can't afford him right now because they have like what, 5 or no, what do they have in cap space? They don't have a lot of cap space. Maybe it's like just under 10, whatever it is. So they're up against the cap right now, which is why they're in a situation that they're in. So I would right now lean like 60-40 that Jason Robertson gets traded rather than staying in Dallas. And if he's getting traded, someone's going to get him, right? Could that team be an Eastern Conference team? Could that team be somebody that's going to, come back to haunt you if you aren't the one that gets him? The Bruins should be in on him, especially if we're talking a couple of first-round picks and a Pavel Zacha, or I would hate more to give up a Minton or a Letourneau, but like, sure, right? To me, I'm not touching Higgins, but if you want to go out there and bring in a true impact player, you can't avoid the cost of doing so. You just can't. So it comes down to what's the lesser of two evils. That's why I've been in favor of an offer sheet, because I'd rather give up a couple of first round picks over 5 years, that some of which are 5 years from now, 4 or 5 years from now, and they're 7, 8, 9 years from being in the NHL, as opposed to giving up a current asset like a Zacha or a Minton or whatever, and some more immediate first round picks. But again, if you want to bring in a true impact player, you don't get those players for free or even at a bargain, unless that player literally wants to go to you, like a Brady Tkachuk. And even then, Florida had to give up 3 first rounders plus. So it's like, if you want to make a splash, you got to pay the piper. Like, that's it. Like, there's no in between, really. Or be patient. Like, but you're going to piss off a couple of your top players, and if they're okay with that, everybody's okay with that, fine. But it's got to be one or the other here. And in being patient, also sell off a couple of pieces, like a Zacha, because it's clearly a seller's market right now. So this in between land that they live in, so far, isn't what's ideal. But to Scott's point, it's very early right now.
You know, the Robertson trade that just makes so much sense to me, and it's not the Bruins, it's not Zacha, but it's Robertson to Detroit and Dylan Larkin going back the other way.
Yeah.
Like, Dallas was already on Larkin's list as one of the teams he'd go to. That just, both teams get another, I like Robertson more than Larkin, but another star, like top of the lineup caliber player. They both change scenery, and, like that checks out. I could see that. Yeah, on the Bruins, potentially being patient. Like, I'm with you. That should be in play as one of the paths. Like, they would get a lot of backlash, right? If they have like a quote unquote boring offseason where there is no big move, buying or selling, like they're going to get ripped. And yet I would think like that's maybe not the end of the world. Like, even if they don't make, I've said it before, even if they don't make a decision on Zacha this summer, I'm fine. Like, I'm fine with that. I think that's okay. Go into next season, see how it goes. If you're in the mix, then you're probably keeping them around. And if you're not, and the season doesn't really go well, then you can trade them in season and still get a lot. So I don't think that would be the disaster that I think certainly a lot of fans would paint it as. And I think like sports radio for sure would jump on them. But this path that, the retool on the fly that they started in March 2025 with the trade deadline sell-off, I never thought was going to be a 1-year project. Like, I never thought they were going to be contending for a Stanley Cup in 26, 27. I thought that was just, that would have been way too high of an expectation. So they've gotten younger. They have some pieces now, some assets, draft prospects. Like, you can't, I wrote this in my column on EI, WEI.com that I posted late Wednesday night, Thursday morning, that like this was always going to be a tightrope walk. And the thing about a tightrope is you can't just sprint to the other side. And you also can't afford any missteps where you're going to fall off and then the whole thing goes up in smoke. Like, you have to get like almost every step right, but you can't rush it. So yeah, like if the big move that accelerates this forward isn't there this offseason, you can be a little bit patient. And that, part of Sweeney's answer to my question about trading off the roster is he mentioned, sometimes you have to take half a step back to take 2 steps forward. And I think they are still in that phase here where this isn't a completely linear process where it's like everything now is just about adding and building up and pushing forward. It's like, no, there could still be a half a step back here, step back there. Like, clearly they should not be at the point where they're like all in and it's like, let's just go add as much as we can. Like, they're not there yet.
Okay, but especially if Arvidsson goes, all right, they say they can't come to a deal with him. He gets something he wants and he leaves in free agency, you have so much cap space. Like, are you just not going to do anything with it? Like, there's so much opportunity in terms of what you're able to do, in terms of what you can fit under your cap. Like, that would be, honestly, that would be such a step back to lose Arvidsson and not have any replacement there, I think.
Temporarily, yes, it would. I'm also not opposed to having cap space unused. Like, again, the low hanging fruit there, and I think the thing that honestly the Jays are probably scared of is you get accused of being cheap. If you don't spend to the cap, you get accused of being cheap. I think there are hockey reasons to not spend to the cap every year unless you are in all in win now mode. Then yes, you should be spending to the cap. If you're where the Bruins are and you're kind of in transition, retooling on the fly, leaving cap space open is not a bad thing because then you have it available. If something pops up, some situation that we're not even thinking about right now, player becomes available via trade, whatever it might be. If you have the cap space, that is one less hurdle you have to clear to go bring in big name X. If you're right up against the cap and someone becomes available, well, now you got to figure out how to open up cap space to go get them. So I think teams that are where the Bruins are, I think it is often a smart move to leave yourself some cap space and some financial flexibility.
Yeah, but if there are still some money in, money out situations that they should be exploring for like some trades, like to try to. I still think the Hagans, Minton, and then other guys who aren't here yet, like a Latour. I still feel like that next wave. I still think that they need other players around them that are around their age range, like. That could also help right now, like the McTavishes or the Kent Johnsons. Like, I just think that to do nothing this offseason, which none of us here are saying that they do, but in that world, I it would be disappointing to just do nothing. Like, there's ways to be patient while still playing chess a little bit. I wanted to make a comment quickly on Zacha's situation because it's very important here, and I want to flush this out. I personally. I'm not ruling out the fact that they could extend Zacha, and I'm not pounding my chest that they have to absolutely trade him. But the reason why I'm talking about it this offseason is because I feel like, listen, in their heart of hearts, and Sweeney's having conversations with Zacha's camp, right? Like, if Sweeney, as we currently speak, thinks that ultimately they're going to extend him, then Scott, your scenario, I think there's a lot more validity to that of like, you don't have to do anything on him right now. You don't have to extend him now. You don't have to trade him now. Let's see how next year goes. If we suck, maybe we can flip him at the deadline for something. And if we're good, we're not going to move him anyway because we plan on re-signing him. Like, that's true. But if they right now truly don't know if they're going to be able to extend him, I think that this summer is the best chance to trade him because we all know that while, yes, if they go into next season and they suck, they could still flip at the deadline. But as things currently stand, that's not their plan, right? Like, the Bruins themselves and fans, like, we don't want that to be the case. So if the Bruins are going into next trade deadline and they're in the playoff picture or around it, we all know they're not going to trade him then because trading him would be completely damaging to their goal of trying to make the playoffs. So I guess what I'm saying is if they don't trade him this offseason, now it's out of your control. Now you don't know if you'll suck next year or not until you get there. And if you get to next trade deadline and you keep him, I guess what I'm saying is you have to extend him at that point. Like, if you get to next trade deadline and you don't move on from him because you're competitive and you're in the playoff picture or you're around it and you think it's best to hold on to him, at that point, you have to keep him and extend him because to let him go to UFA for nothing when you could have gotten something for him right now and, next trade deadline is not an option anymore because we were good. Like, that's the type of shit that's going to piss me off. So about like, we don't have to make a decision now. Okay, you don't. But if you don't make a decision now to trade him and you keep him and the next trade deadline you keep him, well, don't look at me now and say, well, we couldn't come to a deal with them in the offseason to sign him. Well, now I'm going to lose my shit. You see what I'm saying? That's why trading this offseason is like there could be more pressure to do it now because you're in control of the situation more so.
Yeah, you're right. Like, listen, that if they lose him next summer for nothing, that is a disaster. No question about it. But I think that's why, like, to kind of where you started, like, you need to know now if realistically you have a chance to re-sign him.
Right.
Like, I mean, they're talking to his agent, so you got to have a ballpark. You got to have a feel for, like, okay, can we get him for $7.5 million a year, $8 million a year, or is his agent like being like, hey, we think he might command double digits the way this market's going? If you're that far apart where they're like, yeah, our starting place is 10, and the Bruins are like, oh, we were thinking 7.5, then go trade him this summer. Like, that's way too big of a gap to bridge. But if you're close enough and you know there's mutual interest there, and Zacha's not just going to be chasing top dollar, okay, then like you can keep a friendly relationship there. And even if you don't get it done right now, you know there's a really good chance you can get that done in season. So that's what they do have to. That's what Sweeney does have to have a feel for right now. Right. Is are we close enough that like if and when we decide to pull the trigger on an extension, we can get it done, or are we so far apart that this is going to be a problem? Because if it is, then yes, you trade him now.
Right. And we don't have the luxury of knowing those conversations, which makes our conversation speculating on it all a little bit more difficult. But yeah, because like we all three of us here know, and everybody listening knows, if the Bruins are in a playoff spot next year, or they're around one, contending for one, just like they didn't trade Middlestad or Arvidsson, like they're not going to trade Pavel Zacha if they're and we all know that they want to be in that situation, right? Like they don't want to be selling at next year's deadline. Some Bruins fans might want that, but the Bruins don't want that. So if he knows right now that like it's not a foregone conclusion that they re-sign him, that's why trading him now has to be a real possibility. Because yeah, you're right. Maybe you do suck next year and you trade him at the deadline because you're selling, but that's not what their plan is. So it's like that would be just kind of like a lucky happenstance. So if you get to next deadline and you keep him, you better extend him, because to lose in that, not because I would love a 10-year or a 7 or 8 year commitment to Zacha going into his throughout his whole 30s, but because just out of spite, you just completely wasted a very valuable asset. You see what's going on this summer, like Zacha can get you something if you wanted to, but again, we don't know the conversations that they're having. So,
well, and just quickly, but before you weigh in, Bridget, I will note too that on Zacha's side, there would be an impetus to get an extension done now, because this summer is the last time you can sign an 8-year extension. So once the season starts, 7 years is going to be the maximum going forward. So like that might help the Bruins right now. Like maybe he takes a little less on the AAV because he wants that maximum 8 years. Now, I know, like, you know, fans can have opinions on like whether they should be giving Pavel Zacha 8 years, but just another factor to throw out there.
Yeah. I mean, and I kind of said it before. I personally think that Zacha does fit here, is good here, makes sense to extend here. So to me, that it doesn't seem like such a huge problem, and that's probably why I don't see it as like, you know, just smoke and mirrors comments that Sweeney made yesterday, because I think it makes sense. So yeah, I think an extension now could. And it's also like, say Zacha has a great season, like, you know, you're going to have to pay more for him on an extension if you wait and he gets better. So that there's always that risk as well. If you've identified him as someone you want to keep, you don't have to go through the anxiety of that, you know, the vulnerable season of the contract, the last year. And then you avoid the conversation that Brian was kind of alluding to of losing him for nothing, which you don't want to do for a guy who at this point seems like he has, you know, the value of getting you a first round pick. Depending on, you know, who you're doing business with, you maybe get a little bit more than that. But yeah, so I think I would like to see him stay. And I do want to talk too about, what do they do if Arvidsson goes? Because obviously the second line that they had last year was very successful. And Arvidsson was a big part of that. So, we don't know what he's asking for. I had gotten the sense that he's got kind of a high ask. But yeah, like, do they have to are they forced to make a trade at that point? Because then you have a gap that you need to fill in your top six, which you probably, I don't know if you're finding a free agent that makes sense for you in that. I don't know. Maybe you guys have a name in free agency that you think, oh, they don't have to spend anything on, but like, that's where I see them maybe needing to move someone off the active roster, is to try to find a guy for the second line.
Well, I'll say this about Arvidsson. I respect what he did last year for the Bruins. I think he was a good fit. He's a hard worker, and that's what matters most to me is one's work ethic. Obviously, you need the skill to go with it, but I appreciate his work ethic. What I will also say is, I'm not interested in giving Zacha a 3+ year deal. I think that Arvidsson, because he is in his 30s. He has had injury issues. I do wonder if last year was kind of, the best of what Arvidsson could be for this Bruins team. And going forward, it could just get, a little bit more of a regression, whether it's health-wise or otherwise. Don't forget, he wasn't available for you, really. And what it mattered most in the playoffs, which I'm not holding against him. I'm just saying, again, don't forget he had injury issues towards the end of the season. So if the Bruins' future of the top six is so fragile that they need Viktor Arvidsson to come back, then there's problems. Like, you should be able to try to find a way to replace him internally, or on the, via trade. And if you have to dip into the UFA market, which is not my preference, but especially now, because now with Radish off the board, with Tuck off the board, now your second, third, fourth options going into free agency. Now they're rising. So I think their stock is rising. So does a Mason Marchment acquisition cost more now that Tuck's off the board, right? So like things like that.
And also, like, those could end up having to be trades, because look at what's happening. Like, those guys, and the same thing happened last year. Nobody made it to free agency, right? Like, it was little deals within, under team control still, like, make a trade. That's how you get him. Like, a lot of guys didn't end up in a bidding war because somebody traded for them, or their own team re-signed them. So like we talked about it last year. It's like, oh, well, not much happened anywhere in free agency last year. So when I saw Alex Tuck and Radish, like, those are two examples of the same thing that happened last year. It just doesn't make it all the way there.
I guess I should amend something I've kind of said throughout this episode. Technically, if the Bruins don't trade Zacha at next trade deadline and they keep him, they don't necessarily lose him for nothing, because as we've seen this summer, you can shop, the rights to a pending UFA beforehand, but the return is significantly less. Yeah. I just wanted to make that so that is they probably wouldn't lose him for completely nothing, but
yeah, but you're only getting a 4th or 5th round pick,
right?
Yeah, I mean, as far as, if they lose Arvidsson, I guess, like, I'm not in any more of a rush to go sign a second or third liner. Like, I want impact top 6 forwards, regardless of whether or not Arvidsson's back. So I'm still looking around that market, but if they can't get a deal done with Arvidsson, I don't feel like it's like, well, we got to turn around and go get Mason Marchment or Michael Bunting. Like, I like Mason Marchment. I even like Bunting's game to an extent. I just don't feel like those are players I need to go out and get because, oh boy, I have this opening on my second line. Like, I don't know. That could be, James Higgins might get a shot in the second line. Husnudinov might line up there and be just fine. Maybe you don't trade away Casey Middlestad in that situation because you want at least a little bit of continuity and stability there. Like, I don't think you need to go rush out and like do something rash just to replace Arvidsson. I I've said all along, like, I would like to keep Arvidsson at the right price. And I think the max for me is like 3 years, 6 or like a little over 6 million a year. I would be okay with that. I don't think that really hurts you. I think he'll be a good player for a couple more years. If we're getting to 4 years or the AAV's pushing up to like 7 million, then I'm probably backing away.
Yeah, I'm not giving Viktor Arvidsson a 4-year deal. I'm sorry, and I totally respect the player, and I appreciate if that's what his desire is, because he is getting up there in age, and he is a UFA, and he has to think about him and his family. So I'm not begrudging the player for wanting that. But if we're talking what's best for the Boston Bruins long term, like I'm just midway through his contract, if it was a 4-year deal plus, it's like you should have like Will Zeller should be in his spot. Or, like Letourneau should be in your top 6 or middle 6, and Hagens and Minton and Hustadinov. I think Hustadinov could, be. I think they're not exactly the same type of player, but I think you could see Hustadinov being like what Viktor Arvidsson kind of was during his youth. Maybe not as much production as what Viktor did, because I think Viktor was at one point maybe a high 50s, 60-point player, maybe a 30-goal scorer a few times. I don't know if I see that for Marat, but that type of style, I think you could have him, but you could have Viktor Arvidsson, but 8 years younger or whatever it is, right? So I just think the Bruins need to they need to identify players that are cost control, that are younger, that can do a similar role to what maybe you're paying for in UFA or out of a veteran, right? So again, 2 years for Arvidsson, I wouldn't come on here and bitch. 3 years, I wouldn't love it, but I think to Scott's point, I could live with it. But it just either way, he doesn't move the needle. He's just a piece. He's a piece. So it's to the conversation earlier, it's they either need to make a big impact move or get
Yeah, I'm probably I think clearly I'm higher on Arvidsson. I think he's a little bit I thought he was really good last year. And I don't dismiss you mentioned him getting hurt in the playoffs. Yeah, well, not a surprise. Your offense dried up in that series right at the same time. And after the series, we hear about we weren't getting inside enough and weren't getting chances around the front. It's yeah, who was really good at that was Arvidsson all season. He was second on the team in 5-on-5 points. I don't know if Husnudinov is going to do that. I like Husnudinov, and I think he can do some of it, but I also I just want to make sure I am not going to be dismissive of what Arvidsson gave you last year. I think there is real value there.
I don't think I'm being dismissive. I don't think I'm wrong in saying that he's a piece. He's a good piece. He's not he's a piece. I don't think he's not a core player. He's not a star player. He's a piece. And I like what he did. I agree.
Yeah, I guess my point is I'm just gonna be. I think I'm just more cautious about stripping away a key offensive player from a team that needs more offense, not less.
Well, I have not said not to re-sign him. I'm talking about I'm not re-signing him beyond a certain term. If I could bring Arvidsson back for 2 years, all day, every day. I'm not saying I agree. If this team is without him next year, yeah, it hurts them because of what he did last year. But I don't want him on the team in 2031. You know what I mean? So that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with what he meant to the Bruins last year and what he would mean to them next year and the year after, as their younger players are still maturing into what they could be. I think Hustadinov could mature into an Arvidsson type of player. Not a guarantee, but Arvidsson, it's not a guarantee that he'll remain healthy and that he'll produce the way he did last year. What happens with Casey Middlestad? He was a part of that line, right? Is Casey Middlestad somebody that they move on from? If they do, does that change the dynamic of the line? As younger players evolve on this Bruins roster, maybe Arvidsson at some point goes down the lineup or something like that. How does he do when he's not in the same situation he was? So there's questions and there's risk in every situation. I agree. I think Arvidsson is a good player to have on his team for the next couple of seasons. But beyond that, that's where my conversation picks up about all right, you know what I mean? are we going to give him a 4-year deal plus, like to your point, Scott? Like that's where I'm coming from, you know? Bridget, you're a little bit muted there. Unless it's just me. Scott, can you hear her?
No, yeah. Bridget, you're having audio issues. Do we want to shift to defense though? And because I think there's stuff to get into here. I mean, look, along with Sweeney was asked like what are his priorities this offseason and mentioned speed.
Am I back?
Speed. Yeah,
yes, you're back.
Okay, I don't know what happened.
And Sweeney mentioned speed and skill, which we heard, you know, on the breakup day press conference as well. And then, as Cam Neely has also done, noted right side of the defense. And it's like, okay, so Peeke is the right shot defenseman. I did think it was notable when he talked about if we don't re-sign Peeke, we got to make a trade to fill that spot. And he didn't just say, well, we have weei-fm to fill that spot. Like, didn't even mention that as a possibility on how to fill in for the loss of Peeke. Wonder what that says about his intentions with weei-fm.
Right.
But, you know, look at the market for right shot defensemen is pretty thin. Radish is gone. John Carlson, we think everyone says he's basically already picked Tampa. I mean, we'll see. Maybe something changes. So there's Rasmus Anderson at the top. I think I've certainly made my opinion known about that. I do not want to give 7 years to Rasmus Anderson at $8 to $9 million a year, which is what the different projections, AFP and Evolving Hockey have him at. That scares the daylights out of me. I think he's way too inconsistent for that. Beyond that, there's not a whole lot. Trade-wise, we don't know. Again, as this offseason has already shown, sometimes there are guys available that we don't hear about. Colton Parayko, I guess, would be one name we have heard about, but he's in his 30s, right? Like, how good of a fit is that for where the Bruins are right now? And then there's the internal options who could maybe flip over, right? Like, Mason Lohrei is still a Bruin right now. He played the right side a bit last year, as did Jonathan Aspero. I know we want to touch on Frederic Brunet, who Sweeney was asked about Brunet and Patra, and he said, you know, yeah, like it's time for both of them to push for an NHL job and to win an NHL job. And he was very complimentary of Brunet in particular and said, like, you know, he really showed us something this year, and basically they think he is ready to push. So is that third pairing left side, or is he a candidate to flip over to the right side? So I think it's going to be fascinating to see how they approach the defense as a whole, but certainly that right side that they keep mentioning.
Yeah, and I did want to bring up the Brunet and Patra comments too, because he said about Patra, it like you said, like kind of time to make a push, but for him, he was using the term entry point. Like your entry point might be that you actually have to be more defensive. You actually might need to be able to take some penalty killing minutes. And that's where you get some of your time on ice and be in that kind of a role, not necessarily the offensive role that he kind of started out with the team. And hopefully he's
fourth line center. Fourth line center.
They go, and those guys tend to be called upon to kill penalties and get some time that way. And so, yeah, that'd be great. That'd be good for him. I think that'd be, he spent the year, most of it, besides 2 games down in Providence, and hopefully has rounded his game out a little bit more to the point where you do feel he's more responsible defensively. And he did work on penalty killing down there too. So maybe that's kind of an indication that, okay, we could see him start in Boston next year. And Brunet, he was very, like you said, very complimentary of. And so I think maybe that is something they're very much considering as an option. And he wouldn't say which RFAs he had, given them information to that he wanted them back. But Jordan Harris is one of those guys. So I wonder what the situation is going to be with him. But Brunet, we liked him last preseason. And he's got that offensive upside that they kind of lack.
Yeah. Well, Bridget, that last part is what kind of caught my ear specifically when Sweeney was talking about him. He was talking about when Brunet first came up, was drafted. He was more of like a go type of guy, and the Bruins wanted him to kind of round out his game defensively. And then Sweeney talked about, but at the same time, now that's something that we covet because the league's changing. So that ability for defensemen to be offensive. So reading between the lines, it sounded like Don Sweeney was acknowledging a player who has pretty much done all that they've wanted him to do at one level before getting a chance at the next. And I think that's good. I was glad to hear that. I hope that he is on this team next year. And I love Jonathan Aspro, what he did. If that means that Jonathan Aspro is, on his defense pair, or if Aspro is, your first guy out of the lineup to start opening night. I don't know. It depends what else they do with their lineup. But
I like the idea of that as a third pairing.
Me too.
Brunet Aspro as a third pair.
Me too.
The French connection.
Yes, exactly. There you go. Exactly. But in that world, something's got to give with Jokiharju, right? Or Peeke. And here's my question: if Don Sweeney could bring back Andrew Peeke for the exact term and price that he wanted, and that wasn't an obstacle, would he bring him back with Jokiharju on this team? Like, would he run it back with the two of them again in the same decor, one of them playing outside of where they should be? Or like, do you think that he's trying to move Jokiharju and doesn't intend on? But it's happening quick. Free agency is on July 1.
Yeah, you just can't. Like, how?
I don't know.
You can't justify that. So
right.
So all the projections have Peeke getting anywhere from 4 to 5. So let's call it 4.5. Jokiharju makes 3. There wasn't enough room for both of them in the lineup last year, and you want to have a better decor this year. Like, you're gonna be spending $7.5 million on 2 guys who ideally are on your third pair, and one of them's probably going to be out of the lineup. Like, it would make absolutely no sense to me to re-sign Peeke and not move Jokiharju. I can't even fathom like how that works or why they would try that after like there wasn't room for both of them last year, and neither one stepped up and claimed a second pairing top 4 role. It's like, exactly what they are. They're both third pairing guys at best. So like, what? Do not trick yourself into thinking like there's a spot for both of them in your lineup.
And I think I'll speak for myself, but the fact that I'm afraid that that's actually something that they're considering kind of speaks volumes about my faith in Sweeney's decision making at times. Like, he's done some good things over the years. He's done some things that are a bit mind-boggling, and this would be one of them. Like, but again, if you want to re-sign Andrew Peeke to pretty much be what Henry Jokiharju is slated to be, because Sturm likes him, that's one thing. I still think they might want to move on from. I still think they should probably move on from both of those guys, because I think that you could have a D pair of a Frederick Brunet and a Jonathan Aspro, and albeit it's unproven to an extent. And then you can have an extra defenseman of a Jordan Harris, or you can go out there and sign a Troy Stetcher as like a small UFA signing to be a right shot depth. Like, actually, like, you can do things. So I personally would rather no Peeke and no Jokiharju on this team next year, if possible. But if you have to keep one of them, I could see them wanting to trade Jokiharju and then bring in Peeke to be that guy. But again, stuff has to happen quick, and that kind of leads me to a question I have for you guys, which is like, do you foresee the Bruins making any trades between now and July 1? If you had to guess.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know how many. I don't know if it's more adding or selling off some of these extraneous pieces who didn't really have a role down the stretch. But yeah, I definitely see, like, honestly, even if the over-under was 1.5, I'll go over. Like, they might be relatively minor. It might not be a blockbuster, but yeah, I think there's going to be at least a couple between now and the middle of next week.
You think like Asimont for
yeah, like
Asimont
another one that it's like it's just obvious. It's like he didn't have a role in the second half. I think he was pretty clearly unhappy. I don't think he even hid that all that much when he talked to the media. Like, why would Asimont be back here this season? Like, find him a home. Take conditional 7th round pick, like whatever it takes. Like that just would make a ton of sense. Obviously, Lorai's one we continue to talk about. That I can certainly see moving. This isn't so much me reporting anything, but I've just found myself trending a little bit more towards the idea that maybe Lorai's back and like maybe they still see something. Not saying it's definitely happening. I could definitely still see him traded, but I have wondered about that possibility. And like, if we're talking about, filling out a lineup where maybe Peeke and Jokiharju are both gone, like maybe there's still a spot there for Lorai and Brune to break in. Like,
yeah,
I don't think it's a lock that Lorai gets traded. Although I would probably still put it somewhere a little over 50%.
And I'll say too, because I didn't get a chance to weigh in on the Jokiharju part of it.
We know he's your favorite player, Bridget.
I was gonna say, like, I feel really bad, honestly, because I just don't have a super high opinion of him on the ice. I'm sure he's a great guy off the ice. I would prefer Peeke over Jokiharju if you had to choose one over the other, which would mean you'd have to sign Peeke and you'd have to trade Jokiharju, unless you wanted to, for some reason, have both of them. But I think I have said before that Peeke would be preferable to me over Jokiharju in this situation, but their contracts are not it doesn't quite line up that way. So I would be totally fine if they and I'm trying to think to myself, like, there probably is a team that would take Jokiharju. Like, there's some teams that need a third pair defenseman, and maybe because of the lack of market, then there's interest there from somebody. So maybe that happens.
I think Marco Sturman agrees with you in terms of who we'd prefer. I'm not even trying to be funny here. I honestly think that if the Bruins were to go into next season with the right side of Charlie McAvoy, Andrew Peeke, and Henry Jokiharju, I honestly think that could be the worst right side in the NHL. And that's while having a top 15 D-man in the league in that rotation. That's how much of a drop off you're talking from McAvoy to the other two. And I'm really not trying to be funny here. Like, do you think that's like legit?
I think that's hyperbole. It would not be good enough. But without looking at it, I'm almost positive I could find worse right sides.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, maybe it would have to be a team that has a stud left shot defenseman and the right side's plug and play. But I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe, but that would simply be because McAvoy's making up for the other two. Okay. How about this?
I mean, that's a big piece to have at the top. Like, there's plenty of teams that don't have a McAvoy and also don't have very good second guys.
How about this? Do you think they could be among the worst second and third pair right shot defenseman combos in the league?
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. That might be closer to being accurate.
Which, big picture, the fact that we've been having this conversation is a problem, right? So if you were to bring them back, like, that's not good enough. It's just not. What are we doing, right? So sometimes you just have to let guys go. like what are we doing here?
Stop gaps for now and draft Tommy Belial, 23rd overall.
Yeah, shame on us. We haven't even talked about. Well, we had Chris Peters on, but like, the draft is tomorrow. Do we think the Bruins use that pick? Is that pick going to be part of a trade package? And Bridget, I know there's one thing you want to talk about too. We'll get to that before we sign out.
I lean towards they do make the pick. I'm sure Don Sweeney was asked about that too and said, like, again, like, it was basically like everything has to be on the table. I'm sure in the right package for the right player, they would move it, but as we sit here Thursday morning, I would say it's more likely they end up making the pick. And I did see one other note here. Scott Wheeler of The Athletic did his final mock draft and also had the Bruins taking Jack Hextall. So that's now two pretty prominent draft guys that I like and trust, who, along with Chris Peters, who have the Bruins going Hextall. And I do think there could be something there. I definitely could see him being a player they like. I would like to target a little bit more offensive upside there, but I do like the way Jack Hextall plays. Like he's smart, he's competitive, he's physical, he's two-way player. And as Chris said when he was on with us, it's like those are things you don't want to bet against, right? Like high IQ, high compete players, those guys tend to find a way to be NHLers. But like Scott Wheeler's mock draft also still had Blyle, Xavier Villeneuve, Elton Hermanson, and Nikita Klepov on the board. And if that were up to me, I would take one of those guys. They might be riskier. They might have a lower floor, but I think those guys have like legit top 6 upside in the case of the Wings, top 4 upside for the D. And Hextall, I wonder if like third line is his ceiling.
Can I ask you? Oh, sorry, Bridget, go ahead.
I was gonna say Lyle is somebody that you were interested in because of his offense. And like that's why he would probably be considered a little riskier, but also it really feels like that's something that they need. Like it feels like that's the most like fit for we're trying to add some offense back there. We're trying to add some speed. Like I just feel like that is the profile that fits the profile of what they need.
Well, when Chris Peters is on and called Blyle who he thinks, and this is what Chris does for a living, the best overall skater in the draft. Everybody, Gavin McKenna, Ivor Stenberg, like Chase Reed, everybody. It's Blyle. So it's like, okay, if the best skater in the draft is available and he put up amazing numbers as a rookie in the queue, and he's a defenseman, like, okay, I think that's something that I would definitely be willing to take a chance on. There was another Bruins move that we haven't touched on. I want to get you guys' opinion on this. They did re-sign. Is it Simon Zahaicek?
Yeah.
What do you think that means for the future of either Michael DiPietro or Jonas Korpisalo, or is it just a situation of like what do you make of that trade, that signing?
I think it means they're looking to move a goalie. Like
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise they have that they now have 5 under contract. So obviously Swayman, Korpisalo, DiPietro, Zahaicek, and Max Lundgren, who they signed out of Merrimack, who had a terrific season, led Merrimack to the Hockey East Championship, was awesome in those 2 games at the Garden. I think he's in the AHL. I guess the one other possibility is like he starts in the ECHL, but I don't see that. I think he's in the AHL to start. So in my mind, like him and Zahaicek are the 2 AHL goalies, and one of DiPietro or Korpisalo is gone. And I think we are all on the same page of hoping that's Korpisalo and you give DiPietro a chance. But yeah, someone's going to give. Like there's not room for all 5 of them between NHL and AHL. I don't think. I do also think it means, to quickly touch on an RFA who's probably not getting a qualifying offer, Luke Kavalin, who bounced between Providence and Maine last year. He's an RFA. My guess is he probably does not get qualified.
And just to bring up this name, Lysell was somebody that Sweeney was asked about, and he said he wasn't going to name names on who was or wasn't part of the future plans. But I did feel like the question caught him a little bit off guard, just the way that it was kind of towards the end. And I think he probably thought we were out of the woods on that. And then all of a sudden, it's like, well, we want to be specific. Is Lysell getting? And he was just like, can't talk about it. So we'll see about that. He's obviously been somebody that we've talked about a lot because he was a first-round pick as well a few years back and never really broke in to the league. And maybe it's a one-sided thing that Bruins don't want him back. Maybe he doesn't want to come back either. So that'll be interesting because I think that's obviously a smaller part of what this free agency will look like, but it's certainly not completely inconsequential because that is a first round pick that obviously if he is already not in your system, we can have the bust conversation that I think we've kind of been avoiding because, there seemed like there was still time and maybe the ability for him to get things on track, but maybe we're at the end of the road with him. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, it's really tough to have a former first round pick and not issue him a qualifying offer. It wouldn't shock me. Like, again, I think it's a hard thing to do, and it's just bad PR to let him walk away for nothing. But I mean, yeah, like it does feel like they're pretty much at the end there, unless they think he's ready to make a real push this year. And I just don't know what they would have seen this past year that would tell them he is. Yeah, I do wonder about that. Is he one who they just let go?
Yeah, and if you just look at his box scores too in the AHL, like you don't know anything about him besides what he does production wise. He's done okay in the minors, like producing. Like he's a former first round pick who has decent production in the minors, but never gets a qualifying offer. What's going on there? And that's when you have to start to peel back a little bit. And I'm sure there's just a lot. We don't know what's happening. Like maybe they do, right? So, but before we send out, Bridget, was it you who asked Don Sweeney about Elias Lindholm?
No, it wasn't. I think it was Dupes.
Okay.
And it was the very end of the conversation here. And Dupes he had multiple questions about it, Elias Lindholm, and kind of was trying to get at what is it that you're planning on doing with him? Because obviously he signed as a 1C. The numbers really were not a 1C this year. And basically, to try to paraphrase what Sweeney was saying about him was, actually I found it. He said he hasn't been offensively as productive. That's not his fault. He was referring to the injury, the fact that he's been dealing with that back injury. He said he hasn't missed full seasons as a result, but it's just been nagging on him. It just might be that this is what his new level is. So they believe that he could go higher, but it does seem like maybe we're at the point where reality is sinking in a little bit about him. This is who he is now. And Sweeney did mention like he's going to try some alternative treatment to try to help the back situation. And the part at the very end, Dupes comes back and says, "Is it time for him to call it a day?" And he said, no, he's nowhere near that.
Yeah, I mean, doesn't make you feel any better about what's going on there. I'll say that. Like, this is the same conversations we were having around breakup day when Lindholm revealed that he was dealing with the back again all year. And, now you're more than a month later, and I think if you were looking for any reason to be optimistic, like you would have loved to have heard Don Sweeney say, yeah, Elias feels a lot better. Just getting some rest has been huge for him. And we think he can have, a complete off season. Instead, you hear like, yeah, he's exploring alternative treatments. And it's like, ugh. So like, we're still in the phase here where Elias Lindholm and the team like don't really know exactly how to handle this, and he's exploring alternative methods to treat this. Like, none of it's good. It doesn't make me feel like there's a particularly high percentage chance that he's gonna really get over this and like be completely healthy for this coming season. But then it's also like, is it going to be bad enough that he's on IR and has to, because he has played through it. He hasn't missed a lot of games. So like he can play, but in a clearly limited fashion. I don't know. I don't know what they do. It's a rock and a hard place. Like, this is not a good situation. I don't think there's not much hope of Lindholm being much more than a third liner at this point. And he's getting paid $7.75 million for 5 more years.
Sweeney even said as much that like maybe this is just his new norm, right? Listen, for me, long term, it's not even. This might sound crazy to hear. It's not even a $7 million. It's the no movement because the salary cap is going to be rising to $130 million during his tenure in Boston still. So it's more about the fact that you can't move on from him and the lack of what he's doing for you. It sucks to have him at that cap hit, but it's not as consequential as it was when they first signed him in terms of the cap, or even like right now as we speak. I have a question for you guys, and this is probably better asked in about a week and a half when we see what the Bruins do. But the thought crossed my mind when talking about Elias Lindholm, because clearly it was a signing by Don Sweeney that has not worked out. And in his answer about him at the press conference, it just sounded like, and I'm not even saying everything Don was saying wasn't true. Like, injuries aren't something that players ask for. It's not their fault. But it just like, there just was like a lack of accountability from Don. It was more on Elias. Like, yeah, he hasn't performed the way he probably wanted to. It's like, well, no, he hasn't performed the way that you wanted him to, or you hoped to. Like, there was a lack of just like, he was talking a lot about from Elias's perspective. And it's like, well, Don, what about from your perspective? How do you feel about the acquisition that you made? And again, I want to see what the Bruins do over the next week and a half, but do you guys feel like, generally speaking, big picture, do you feel like Don operates with a true fear for his job? Do you think he's too comfortable right now, like between his relationship with Cam, the fact that ownership really likes him, he's respected around the league, we all know that, he's done stuff with Team Canada. Do you get that sense at all? And like I said, we'll know more in a week and a half. Let's see what they do. But just when you guys see him in person at these press conferences, the way his body language is, the way he answers questions, the way, like, do you feel like he's too comfortable?
Maybe. But I do think we've also heard him talk about like the reality that everyone's time comes. Like he's didn't say it yesterday, but because he wasn't asked directly about his job security, but he has said before, like, I can recommend changes, but sometimes you're the change. And like I do think he knows that and is aware of that. And he's talked about it mostly around coaching changes when that comes up. So yeah, I mean, maybe he's a little, I don't think like there's no part of him that thinks about losing his job. Like, I don't think he's that safe and comfortable. Mm-hmm. Maybe he is a little too comfortable, because you're right. He is good friends with Cam Neely and Charlie Jacobs, and they like him. We've honestly, like, Charlie Jacobs even more than Cam Neely. Like, the way he talks about Sweeney and like the respect he has around the league is like over the top at times. So yeah, maybe that creates too much comfort, but I also think we've heard Sweeney talk about the reality that, like, there's going to come a day where the change is me, where the people above me decide that's the change. So I do think he also operates with that in mind of like, I gotta do things that are going to help the Boston Bruins get back to cup contention, or I might be the change.
Yeah, if they don't make the playoffs this year, I don't know. Who knows? It's
that, honestly, like, that's the kind of thing that it would almost line up perfectly. Like, so Sweeney's 2-year extension starts this offseason. I've always felt the Bruins would absolutely be willing to eat a year on the back end of a GM contract, probably not 2. So yeah, like, if this year goes poorly and Sweeney has 1 year left after that, like, that is as perfect a time to make a change as anything. And I absolutely think that could be on the table.
What did you make about his comments comparing the Bruins to teams around the Atlantic Division right now, saying that he feels like they're competitive with them? And it's like, okay, competitive in what way, Don? Like, if you play them on on a Tuesday night, like it'll be a hard fought game, or competitive in the sense that you actually think you can make a playoff spot in the top 3? Because he mentioned how, well, we're competing against the conference and the wild card's there. So that's telling me he knows that they're like, he's saying like, yeah, we're a wild card team right now as at best. But like, he must know that they're further away than maybe he comes across that they are.
Well, I think, and it can be a bit of a fallacy to look at regular season performance, but I think what he means is like, we played Tampa tough all year. We played Buffalo tough all year and beat them in the regular season, took them to 6 in the playoffs. We played Montreal tough all year. Like, all those games were close. That's the team that goes to the conference finals out of your division. So I think what he means is like, we're right there with all these teams last year. Take Florida out of it because just a weird year for them. We know they're going to be back this season. So like, that's almost like a different conversation. But the rest of them, I think it's more like, yeah, you guys can sit there and rank all these teams ahead of us, but like, we're not afraid of, like, we went toe to toe with them just last season. So I think that's what he means. And he's not totally wrong about that. Like, when they played Montreal or Buffalo or Tampa in the regular season, they didn't look like they like didn't belong on the ice. I think by the end of the Buffalo series, it was pretty clear that the Sabres were better. But the series didn't start that way. Like, Bruins should have been up 2-0. So I think there's a little bit of tricking yourself there, but he's also not totally wrong. Like, they didn't get run off the ice by the rest of the Atlantic Division. In fact, they held up pretty well against divisional competition.
Yeah, I think the question was about like, all right, there's clearly an arms race in this division. The division was already so competitive. We talked about it so much down the stretch. Definitely the most competitive division out there, and it's the hardest division to make the playoffs in because of all of that. And I know the trade of Brady Tkachuk stays in the division, but it goes to Florida, who not only are they going to be back, they're going to be back with a vengeance. It seems like like almost your worst case scenario here, if they're all healthy. I mean, your only hope really is that they're not healthy again. So, but all the guys that were out this past year seem like they're back on track to be fine. So, yeah, it's how do you compete with Florida is I guess its own separate question, because like, yeah, of course there's other teams. And really, I think that the question was directed towards, people are making moves. Where's your move? Right.
Yeah. And I don't even think that the Atlantic is done. Like Scott mentioned earlier, Dallas and Detroit could be a natural fit for a Larkin Robertson type of trade. And Jeff Marek also said the same thing on Twitter today. And there's rumors that maybe Buffalo and or Florida could be in on Connor Hellebuck. Like, so things could get even more difficult in the Atlantic Division for the Bruins if they aren't part of it. I'm not saying Hellebuck is a Bruins thing, but like Robertson, right? So it's in the meantime, we got and this is more tongue in cheek, but you got Cam Neely on Price is Right or whatever he was on Tonight Show. What was he doing over there?
Jimmy Fallon.
The Tonight Show. Sometimes with the Bruins, you can't help but just laugh and shake your head at some of their optics. It's like you have literally the busiest non-trade deadline day in the NHL in terms of trades. the Bruins are just spamming us with like Patrice Bergeron content, which he deserves all of it. And then like you see them retweet Neely at Jimmy Fallon. It's like, oh my god!
You should have let Bergeron do Jimmy Fallon.
Which
is funny.
My only comment on that, and obviously you're not doing this, but like fans online are like, nice to see like Cam Neely's hard at work, and I'm like, Cam Neely's not the one making moves this time. Like if Don Sweeney was doing that, I'd be like, okay, that's pretty questionable. But like, Cam Neely doesn't have to be in the room as Don Sweeney's negotiating stuff right now.
Yeah, no, it's more of an optics thing. It was just it's just one of those things where you're just like, of course. Like it was just the way it kind of happened because you're seeing all these trades come out, these blockbuster trades left and right, and then you just see Neely with his Bruins jersey on, smiling like on a game show set. Which optically, it was undeniably just like, what are they doing? But
he's a celebrity.
But realistically, yeah, realistically, Scott, you're right. Like he's not the GM. He's not like no. But I think people are just like, anything that's not focusing on is, the draft this week. It's like, anyway. Final thoughts before we sign out here.
Well, between now and the next time we record, the draft will have happened. I think there'll be something on the trade front to talk about by then. For the Bruins this time. Certainly there will be more around the league because it's been kind of crazy. And, Sweeney said there's still a lot more chatter. So he thinks there's going to be a lot more movement. And hopefully, like I said in the beginning, maybe they'll be in on it this time. Inside jokes, whatever. Love to be in on one. But so there's the draft. There's a potential, which is Friday, Saturday. There's a potential for maybe a move to be made. And then development camp Monday, Tuesday. So it starts Monday, goes for a few days. And then we hit July 1st. But the main thing between now and next recording is the draft and whatever else chaos happens with the trades.
Yeah, pray for people putting out content this week, trying to time it with because we put this out, and honestly, I saw who's the GM for the Blues? It's why am I blanking on his name right now?
Steen now.
No, but who was before him?
Armstrong.
Oh, yeah, Doug Armstrong. Thank you. I think he made a comment in his press conference for St. Louis media about I think yesterday was like walking on a treadmill at a 4.5, and I think tomorrow might be running at a 6, and Thursday might be running at a 7.5, and then whatever he said. So there's the feeling that a lot of stuff's going to happen between now and the draft. So in any event, thank you all very much for listening. Enjoy the chaos that we assume will be the next 5 days. And as far as next week, so free agency is on Wednesday, right? Yeah, so we'll talk Monday, and then we'll be back on Thursday to discuss the free agency. So thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you soon. Hey guys, thanks for watching the Skate Podcast. If you want to see more of our videos, visit our playlist.
Not in front of a screen? You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Don't forget to follow us on social media. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment.